Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to our study tonight. Let's get right into In the News. This is under the New World Order, and I'm really kind of amazed that this is happening. We've been talking about this for a long, long time, and this might just be the first step that we could concretely say we're headed towards the mark of the beast. Amazon expands pay by palm, another precursor to the mark of the beast. Amazon announced Thursday it's rolling out its pay by palm services to all 500 Whole Foods markets. You'll see it in Birmingham, their stores across the country, making it possible for customers to use their palm for purchases without a wallet or without a phone. This is the most extensive rollout by the e-commerce giant since announcing the payment system in 2021. Customers can set up Amazon One by registering their palm print using a kiosk or a point of sale station at participating stores, which all of them will be participating. So to register, you need to provide a payment card and a phone number, agree to Amazon's terms of service, and share an image of your palms. Once completed, you can take items to checkout and not have to take out your wallet or even your phone. A hover of your hand over the device is all that's needed to pay and leave. I hope you heard that. Just a hover of your hand. It's so easy right now not to use a credit card, just use your phone. This is the next step, and obviously the next step from there. Amazon said customers have found the new payment system more convenient to check out, and that's the whole reason why these things are being done. But privacy concerns are everywhere. Last year, a group of lawmakers raised questions about the mega corporations collecting biometric data from its customers. Amazon One appears to be ushering in a cashless society where a customer's body is becoming a transactional tool. If Amazon's use of palm prints for identification and payment systems sounds like something you've read in the book of Revelation, you're absolutely right. The book of Revelation warns us that during the tribulation, every person will be required to accept a mark in their right hand or their forehead, which will be necessary to buy or sell for commerce. Many Christians are concerned that acceptance of such technology is conditioning people for when the actual mark of the beast is implemented. And of course, I believe it is. It's that convenience. What often starts off as voluntary, listen to this, can just as easily become mandatory. And whereas tech itself may be neutral, in the hands of the wrong person, it can be extremely dangerous. Just imagine the technology of today in the hands of an Adolf Hitler. It still remains to be seen if the mark of the beast will be digital, or tattoos, or microchips under the skin, or some other form of biometric payment using the hand, such as Amazon Pay. But there's no denying it. Our generation appears to be the first in history to have the technology and now cultural conditioning to fulfill this 2,000-year-old prophecy. Pretty amazing to me, if you ask me. And I go a little bit further and tell you about Israel. There's some trouble afoot in Israel, especially politically. Israel at the crossroads, competing visions for the Jewish state. Amid the largest and most well-funded protest movement in Israel's history, the democratically elected governing coalition passed the first reform in a historic process aimed at bringing Israel's activist Supreme Court in line with the judicial limitations present in most Western democracies. I'm not going to read you all this, but let me tell you what's happening. Israel's just like America, just like America. The Supreme Court in Israel is extremely liberal. You might say it's woke. But what they have the power to do is to overrun the laws of the Knesset. So the Knesset is conservative. And it's not like it goes to a vote in our Supreme Court where you may have some conservatives and you have some liberals. This is not the same. These are all liberals. And so basically a law was passed to stop the Supreme Court from having ultimate rule in Israel. And the people took to protesting. And there's a lot of protesting. So what we're seeing it going against Netanyahu. The reform is just one component of a larger package introduced by the government several months ago. And amid protests and pressure from all sectors of society by those uncomfortable with the right-wing makeup, conservative, of Israel's democratically elected coalition. Netanyahu rescinded the larger reform package because he got so much protest. He and his coalition partners then engaged in the opposition for weeks of negotiations, headed by Israeli President Isaac Herzog, aimed at reaching a broad-based compromise agreement. But in June, the negotiations were halted suddenly by the opposition. Let me tell you why. Because the Biden administration is putting pressure on them. The Biden administration wants their Supreme Court to stay liberal and woke. Boy, figure that one out. Sounds like America. So they want the woke Supreme Court to continue to overthrow the legislature. Protesters have repeatedly blocked highways, as well as Ben Gurion International Airport, much to the chagrin of residents and tourists who've been caught in now regular traffic jams over and above the ones that already existed. So you can actually see America in Israel and see the liberal progressives as they're pushing. While the anti-reform protests appear to be a genuine movement, Barak, which is his Netanyahu's opposition, had spoken of an agenda to overthrow Netanyahu using tools he is now employing long before judicial reforms ever rose to the top of the policy agenda. Barak, who has documented ties to American accused pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, man, it gets deeper and deeper, was one of the shortest serving prime ministers in Israeli history. He was permitted by the courts, the Supreme Court, to negotiate a failed land giveaway to the Palestinian Authority, even after he lost his governing coalition. Just one more example of how the Israeli Supreme Court has historically protected left-wing policies, even when such circumstances could have otherwise been deemed unreasonable. So these days, led by Barak, a former IDF chief, by the way, former generals and security officers and officials, as well as reservists, albeit many of them retired, have threatened that they may refuse to serve should judicial reforms be passed. In other words, reservists, including Air Force pilots, are threatening not to show up if orders are given to fight against Hezbollah, Hamas, or Iran on the basis of political considerations that have nothing to do with orders that may or may not be forthcoming. It's in a mess, just like America is in a mess. Even if the court somehow permits the reform, opposition hopefuls, such as former IDF Chief Staff Benny Gantz, have vowed to undo the reform should the right wing suddenly find itself out of power. Yet the truth is that both the composition and the idea of Israel aren't one reality or the other. They exist as a complex balance of worldviews that must find a way to continue to coexist. And while fragile, the balance has lasted until now with dynamic results. Yet increasingly, too many Israeli leaders see the nation through limited lenses. For the judicial reform crisis to dissolve, at least one side, if not both, will be forced to compromise. For the moment, a bitter crisis ensues with the historic passage of an overdue reform. Let me give you my opinion here. Democracies are great. They work really well as long as you have two opposing sides that are willing to come to a compromise. That's why our founders set it up that way. That's why they set up three branches of the government, so that there wasn't one control, like from a king or from just one side. But when you have a polarization of nations, and when you have a polarization of the populace, and one side wants its way no matter what, and the other side wants its way no matter what, a nation stalls, especially a democratic nation. And it's the beginning of that nation starting to pull apart. So we're watching that happen in one of the strongest nations in the world democratically, the United States, and in another very strong democracy, Israel. So it's pretty much a world phenomenon right now. Let's go a little bit more about Israel and show you this. In the meantime, Israel's trying to protect itself. Palestinian summer camps trains kids to kill Jews. Let me inject something else here. For almost 28 years now, Mark Crumb Ministries has been supporting, and me personally, camps for Jewish kids to go and learn about the Torah, the Old Testament. And they're taken from all the inhabited areas and from all the outskirts of Jerusalem. They're brought to Jerusalem. They have about right now through Chabad House, they have about 20 camps, girls' schools, teaching facilities for children. And so we've supported that. As we're supporting something like that to teach them their Jewish roots biblically, here's what the Palestinians are doing. While school children around the world are enjoying the summer vacation through sports and entertainment, Palestinian children are being taught and trained how to fight Israel and Jews. Look at this chart. Palestinian leaders have been raising generation after generation on hatred for Israel and Jews. This incitement has been taking place in Palestinian kindergartens, schools, universities, mosques, the media, and even crossword puzzles for decades. The Palestinians endorse radical views and support terrorism against Israel, and they teach their kids this, taking them to summer camps to teach them. The Iranian-backed Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas terror groups have been holding summer camps for thousands of school children throughout the Gaza Strip. These camps have served as a framework for inculcating an extreme ideology that glorifies jihad, holy war, terrorism, an armed struggle against Israel with the aim of, quote, liberating Palestine from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Senior Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad officials regularly attend these camps, and they attend the opening and the graduation ceremonies, where they deliver speeches as well as live TV streaming. On July 8th, Hamas launched its summer camps for 2023 with the participation of more than, wait to hear this, 100,000 boys and girls. They're teaching them how to kill and how to hate Israelis. 100,000. Children are being trained to carry out terror attacks and serve as human shields in the jihad against Israel. They're being taught that they're being recruited to take part in the battle to liberate Jerusalem. In June 2022, Palestinian Authority Prime Minister Mohammad Shataya denied any trace of Jewish history in Jerusalem. The chairman of the Rafah Administration Committee, Juma Hassanin, said that, quote, these youth camps are intended to train the generation to liberate Jerusalem and to attain victory over the Jews. The summer camp director in Rafah, Mohammad Barhum, said that the camps are part of Hamas's activity that focus on the younger generation to do its important part of generation of the liberation and victory over the Jewish nation. We are watching the indoctrination of these kids. These are terrorists in the making. In the past, Palestinian Islamic Jihad held summer camps under the slogan of Revenge of the Free, in which hundreds of boys under the age 17 participated. Darwish al-Gharalbi, a leader of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, said during a graduation ceremony, quote, these camps establish a generation that's aligned with the path of jihad, holy war, and resistance to the Jews, believing this option and that Palestine is the central issue and fighting the Jews is an act of worship. Our jihad against this continues in all areas. We assure our enemy that this generation will carry the banner and resist with all of its strength. It's time for the international community and above all human rights organizations to hold Palestinian leaders accountable for the child abuse inherent in training their children to become martyrs. It's time that our present administration stop giving money to the Palestinian Authority and Hamas to pay the families of martyrs. It's time we stopped doing it. Donald Trump stopped, but we won't. We're supporting taught jihad. We're supporting violence. We're supporting war. We're supporting terrorism. And we should be ashamed of ourselves. Our present administration is pathetic. It doesn't understand anything, not domestically and not foreign. Next, it'll be pushed harder. And so we're going to see it over and over again. Let me give you a little bit more and talk about the economy for a moment. You know, President Biden and his administration went wild because they told us that the unemployment rate has stayed low. Let me tell you something. The reason it's low is because people are taking several jobs because they can't afford inflation. That's why it's low. It's not because we're having a heyday in our economy. We're not. While you were sleeping, the Fed now goes live, providing path to digital currency. Yet another article about digital currency. A payment gateway designed by the Federal Reserve is called FedNow. I've told you about this before. It's a way to make instant transfers between accounts, sort of like a PayPal or Venmo, but without the user having to move the money from various wallets. While it sounds convenient, there it is, that word again, the concern is that this creates the infrastructure to quickly roll out CBDCs into place. I'll tell you what they are in a moment. This is all the hallmarks of a government strategy. First, they offer it as a convenience or a safety measure, and lots of people will jump on board in order to take advantages. We're in a convenient society. We want to do it as fast as we can. Next, it will be pushed harder, and those who don't adopt it will be mocked, thought of as backwards, and treated with suspicion. After that, it'll be near impossible to do anything without it. Does that sound familiar? Well, it should, because this is exactly what's happening. But what truly makes me worried is that since FedNow is live, this is a soft way to move us all over into using a federal money transfer system that could easily be the platform for the implementation of CBDCs, the digital dollar that could end freedom as we know it. But now, the early infrastructure is in place for CBDCs. Let me just give you a challenge. I would bet, if I were a betting man, and I'm not, that you have never heard the acronym CBDC in our media in America. Yet it's happening right around us. Yet it's going to change all of our lives, but you've never heard one word of it. They have their heads too far down the political scale and they're mudslinging to even tell you about what's really happening around you. It's one of the reasons why I do in the news. Changing a nation's entire currency is not an overnight project. If we're to go completely digital with our money, it would take a while. Once it's all in place though and running smoothly, the final transaction and transition from cash money to digital money would be just a matter of the central bank devaluing our cash, but allowing people to trade it for digital currency at full or at least greater value. In other words, if you have a $100 bill, multiply them out for how much money you have, or a $50 bill, or a $20 bill, the banks will probably, with the help of the government, will devalue those. A $100 bill, they'll tell you, is only worth now $50. So you can keep your $100 bill, or we'll give you $100 in digital currency. I promise you, most of America will take the digital currency because that digital currency can go buy that purse for $100. You'd need two of your $100 bills to go buy that purse. So this is the road we're on. And once CBDCs are in place, especially if they're their only option, your every transaction will be monitored, data will be mined from your spending, and your choices can be controlled. If you don't think that's possible, just think about when you talk about something and your iPhone's next to you. They already are tracking you everywhere they can. So what's the big deal with CBDCs? It stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. And these are the digital versions of our country's currency, our fiat currency. A digital currency alongside our current physical currency is right now voluntary. But a digital currency can mean such controls as automatic taxation or where and when you're allowed to make purchases, all at a push of a button. Bank for International Settlements wrote a glowing report about the benefits of the CBD system, trying to push it. Here's what I took away from it. Central bankers can execute policy or modify rates instantaneously at the push of a button. Private crypto will be bad. Central bank digital currency is very good. CBDCs are better than crypto because they're trusted. They're backed by a bank. CBDCs aren't subject to the practical limitations of paper money. In other words, they can be tracked. Therefore, it protects against money laundering, proliferation financing, and terrorist financing. It will increase the pool of data generated on users and transactions, thus helping the proper authorities. Man, that should ring true. Multiple CBD platforms aid in decentralization. That means we'll have a global economy. We are all just one wrong think away from losing our money. We are just one wrong think away from losing access to our money. Another recent precedent regarding losing access to the financial system is the case of Nigel Farage. I won't read you all these cases, just his. Both he and his relatives have had bank accounts closed and have been unable to open other bank accounts because they've been named PEPs, politically exposed persons. Farage, if you recall, was pro-Brexit. So the United Kingdom shut down all of his family's bank accounts. So it's already happening. People are losing access to the system for having political beliefs that oppose the status quo that the ruling administration has put in place. Man, if you don't think we're in the last days, I don't know. We need to really wake up and understand what's going on. Here's one for you, also under economy. Panic rice buying spreads across the United States, warning to how quickly things can change. Rice is one of the most important staple foods for more than 3 billion people around the world, almost a third of the world. And the nation of India accounts for approximately 45% of all global rice exports. So if India decides to start placing restrictions on rice exports, it's a really big deal. Well, unfortunately, that's just what happened on July 20th. Less than a week ago, India banned the export of non-basmati white rice, by the way, and has created a tremendous wave of panic all over the planet. Non-basmati rice is by far the most common rice used in Asian and Mexican cuisine. In other major rice-growing states, farmers have prepared paddy nurseries, but have been unable to transplant the seedlings due to inadequate rainfall. In other words, there is a worldwide rice shortage right now. India's decision to impose a ban on the export of non-basmati white rice has triggered panic buying among NRIs, non-residential Indians in the United States. This is how fast it can happen. Just days after the export ban was announced, social media was filled with videos of panic buying from coast to coast in America. When people get desperate, they do crazy things. In fact, there was one report of some very desperate consumers wrestling for a bag of rice in Dallas, Texas. I didn't think we'd see anything like this in the United States, but we are. Some retailers respond to this frenzy by dramatically hiking prices on bags of rice, gouging. In one particular case, the price of rice approximately tripled. 9 kilograms of rice, which used to cost $15, was now being sold for $50. Other retailers responded by placing limits on the amount of rice that each consumer could buy. Some, just one bag. Of course, it isn't just the United States where the panic buying is happening. Up in Canada, a grocery store in Toronto has also decided to limit each customer to just one bag of rice. According to the United Nations, 2.4 billion people already don't have enough food to eat on our planet, and about 900 million of them are facing severe food insecurity. Global hunger is going to get even worse during the weeks and months that are in front of us. But you aren't hearing much about that from the mainstream media in the United States now, are you? CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN. Even though the presidential election is more than 15 months away, our major news networks are obsessively focused on that and that only. It's extremely unfortunate because historic changes are taking place all over the world right now. But most Americans don't even realize that they are happening. And somebody may say, well, I don't eat rice. I don't have to eat rice. Rice is just the tip of the iceberg. What happens when it continues down the food chain and we start seeing one food after another, and we become a third world country? It's happening. And I'm not being the harbinger of bad news. This is going on. We can't hide our heads in the sand. It's happening. Our government's not telling us about it. Our media's not telling us about it. We're the most ill-informed people on the planet. And it's pathetic. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing the news. I'm going to get all excited and revved up, so I got to settle down. All right, let me do this one. The summer of strikes is coming. 650,000 American workers are ready to walk off their jobs. Tensions between employees and employers are heating up this summer. Bloomberg reports 650,000 workers threaten to walk off the job and picket in the streets to secure improved benefits, wages, and other conditions amidst the worst inflation storm in a generation. And Biden has the gall to tell us that our numbers on unemployment are going down. Unemployment, our inflation is going way up. And basically people are fed up. They want higher wages because the wages are not keeping up with inflation. So why is 2023 shaping up to be one of the biggest years of strikes in the United States since 1970? Unionized workers have taken advantage of upcoming contract expirations with companies to bargain for better wages and benefits. The combined actors and writers strikes in Hollywood are already a once-in-a-generation event. Unions for United Parcel Service, UPS, and Detroit's big three automakers are poised to join them in coming weeks if contract negotiations fall through. United Auto Workers strike is at 90% odds of happening as union contracts with automakers Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis expire in September. Some logistics experts believe Teamsters will reach a deal with UPS, but that deadline is July 31st and it's coming quickly. We're shaping up to be the summer of strikes come an inflation spike to levels not seen since the 1970s. By the way, we know, and polls tell us, that one of our worst presidents was Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter looks like a great president compared to the president we have now. 2 years of negative real wage growth crushed the working poor. Many are in rough financial shape. So far, strikes have not had a broad economic impact, but that can change overnight. The Anderson Economic Group recently forecasted a 10-day walkout will cost the United States economy $7 billion, with workers racking up $1.1 billion in lost wages and UPS seeing $816 million in losses. That's just for UPS strike. UPS said on July 14th that it was in the process of training non-union drivers to help pick up the slack in case of a Teamsters walkout. The last UPS strike involved 185,000 workers in 1997, lasted 15 days, and cost UPS $800 million. So if these strikes happen, we're going to see another problem that's going to come on. Let me give you a little bit about moral decay. Where have all the adults gone? The rapidly changing morals across Western society is disorienting. It seems as though leaders have lost any appreciation of history and the lessons to be gained from life. How has it happened? Why have younger generations gained so much political power and influence so quickly? Well, let me put it this way. To put it bluntly, where have all the grown-ups gone? The coup of the young has no standard for truth other than personal feelings. If it feels good, do it. It's determined to accept every individual's assessment of his own identity and capabilities. We've entered a dark age in which objective fact, evidence, argument, and tolerance have been banished by a cult which permits no dissent. The Bible records a time when everyone did that which was right in his own eyes. That's Judges chapter 21. That's exactly what's happening right now, which is much like we see today. Regarding the end of our age, the prophet Isaiah warned, and listen to this quote, "I will give children to be their princes, and babies shall rule over them. The people will be oppressed, everyone by another, and everyone by his neighbor. The child will be insolent towards the elder, and the base toward the honorable." Isaiah 3, 4, and 5. That's exactly what's happening. Increasingly, young leaders today refuse to listen to the wisdom and the experience of their elders. However, this upside-down situation will not continue forever. Jesus is coming back. He's going to restore honor and respect for age and experience when he returns. If you want to read about that, it's Leviticus 19:32. Let me give you a little bit more. Conservative, liberal. Polls show a surge in Americans embracing social conservatism. It's starting, the backlash is starting to come. This I could put under good news. And so somebody was asking me if I have any good news tonight. This is great news. Let me tell you what's happening. America is fed up with the liberal agenda and the woke agenda, and they're starting to show it. Well, there have been plenty of positive developments in the culture war, especially a wave of legislation across the United States banning sex changes for children and restricting abortion. I'm always weary of claims that we're winning in any way, although the culture itself has certainly been lost. And when I read of a recent list of wins against the transgender industry, drag queen story hour, etc., I couldn't help but notice that every single one of these victories were regarding issues that weren't even on our radar a decade ago. The victories that the social conservative movement achieves are actually an indication of just how bad things have gotten and how far the goalposts have been moved as a result. That said, there's been some interesting trends and some trending lines lately. Trend lines that have gotten LGBTQ activist groups very, very, very worried. There's been a decline, a steady decline, in those identifying as either very liberal or liberal on social issues, which has dipped to historic lows. 31% identifying right now in America as moderate. What's interesting, Gallup poll report noted, is the last time this many Americans said they were socially conservative was 2012, during a period where consistently more U.S. adults identified as conservative rather than liberal on social issues. The survey comes at a time when many states are considering policies regarding transgender matters, thank God, and abortion and crime, drug use, and the teaching of gender and sexuality in our schools. In other words, we've had enough. This is unlikely to be a coincidence. As progressive activists show their hand, their sheer radicalism on many of these issues puts them at odds with most ordinary Americans. And here comes the backlash, finally, to our woke culture. That's why Gallup reported the increase in conservative identification on social issues over the past 2 years since Biden's been in office is seen among nearly all political and demographic subgroups. Republicans show one of the largest increases, from 60% in 2021 to 75% today. Independents show a modest uptick of 5 percentage points from 24 to 29%, where there's been no change among the Democrats. Since 2021, the report stated there's been a double-digit increase in conservative social ideologies among middle-aged adults, those between the ages of 30 and 64. These polls are encouraging because they highlight the fact that progressives are not only pushing us too far, but an increasing number of Americans are reacting to the fact by identifying not with progressives, but becoming more socially conservative. They see what's going on and they don't like it. That at least is a start. Let me give you my prediction. Not a prophecy, I'm not prophesying. My prediction is that Biden will not run for another term. I think the Democrats will actually push him out. He's not going to run. He may push it that way until they find out what's going to happen in August in the debates with the Republicans, but I don't believe he's going to run. Let me also tell you this. If Americans are fed up with this liberal woke agenda, and in the last 2 years, that means, and independents are, that means that even if Biden did run, he's never going to win. He is at an all-time low in any type of approval. The country's starting to change. Thank God. Push something hard enough and long enough, and people get sick and tired of it. I'll tell you what, average Americans will let things fly every now and then. They may even let transgenderism fly, but not when it affects their households, not when it affects their consumer. And so we're watching it, and thank God for the backlash. Let me give a little bit more, and I know I'm going a little longer on In the News tonight, but worshiping Mother Earth. A new Australian survey revealed that many young people on the island continent reject the idea that humans have the right to use nature for their own benefit. A majority of baby boomers born in the decades immediately following World War II believe humans take priority over other creatures. While nearly 80% of Generation Z, generally those in their teens and early 20s, feel human benefits does not outweigh concerns about the environment or the needs of other species. A discerning people understands the truth is often somewhere between the extremes. God made the earth for the benefit of humans, but not for mankind to destroy it. A society moves away from the worship of God. As a society moves away from the worship of God, it moves in the opposite direction, to the worship of false gods, including Mother Earth. And that's what's happening. Man, that's in the news for tonight. I hope you're listening to it because, again, you're not seeing it on certainly not newsworthy, CNN, or another baloney communication, ABC, or Can't Believe the Spin, CBS, or No Better Coverage, NBC. You're not seeing it there. So I want to bring it to you.